Hello? Welcome everyone to our council meeting. We have such a crowd tonight. This whole side is empty. Just about. We have a couple people over there. So welcome, and we're going to do a roll call by our city clerk, Marcy Killian.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
I'd like to welcome Pastor George Hooper from the United Methodist Church, and he is going to do our Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation. And so if you'll stand and then remain standing for the invocation.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like our city, like many other events happening around, I too turned 50 this year, and I've been thinking about things that happened 50 years ago. 50 years ago tomorrow, Wednesday, August 28th, 1963, was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, subjects timely for our day. Speakers there included leaders in civil rights, the labor movement, and religious communities. But of course, the speech we remember the most was delivered at the end of the program by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. It has become known as the I Have a Dream speech. My rhetorical skills cannot do justice to a recitation of that speech, but I will share a few of the words. He said, "I still have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. One day this nation will rise up and live up to its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream." While some of the dream has been realized, the day of waking to find it a fully realized reality is still a ways off. That morning still lies ahead of us. May we work toward that dawn. And so tonight I ask that we invoke whichever deity we name or that inner source at the core of our being to bring to us what we need for such a time as this. May we seek in our business here tonight and in our homes and schools, our businesses and marketplaces, to recognize the mark of the Creator on each person, to see each one as a soul of infinite value, equals in this commonwealth of life. May we again affirm that our differences do not divide us, but temper us. They complement and balance our weaknesses and strength and allow for a life of variety and endless delight. May we always keep before us the humanity and dignity of those the popular culture considers the least, the last, the lost. May we seek the wisdom to lead, the patience and fortitude to follow faithfully, the humility which comes from the knowledge that we are not the ultimate power, and the confidence which comes from the knowledge that we are blessed and gifted to live in this amazing world and in this wonderful place. So may it be. You may be seated.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Hooper. The next thing is our Brown Act Notice of Simultaneous Meeting Compensation. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to the Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing is the approval of our agenda is our Assistant City Manager, Allie Zimmerman. Welcome tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, there was no closed session tonight or today. And so we have a couple of presentations which are very interesting. And the first one is going to be Ed Barlow, the Vice President of our Director of Planning of North Star Destination Strategies, will present an update on the North County branding project. And we've been actually working on the mayors of the 5 cities have been kind of working on getting a branding the corridor, the 78 corridor, and trying to bring in businesses and jobs and economic development. And so along with that, we've been kind of talking about this off and on because each city is different. And so we've been trying to build on each other's strengths. And in order to do that, we decided to bring in a company. We interviewed several companies, and we picked North Star to go out to the community and hold some meetings and listen to people out there and find out how can we brand some kind of a branding, and so I'm going to turn it over to you,
Great.
Ed, and let you present that.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. My name is Ed Barlow with North Star Destination Strategies. We're here this week visiting with all of the different communities along the corridor. So I'll just give you a bit of information about this project and what we're doing this week and moving forward, and what this can mean for the region. At North Star, we say your brand is what people say about you when you're not around. Branding's what you do about it. I want to remind everybody, and let's see, I'm going too fast, sorry. Haha, there we go. Every community's got a reputation. It might not be what you want it to be right now. It might not be exactly accurate. It might not be as far-reaching, but everyone has one. So think about this. Sorry, I'm not doing this clicker very well. You rather have a bachelor party in Vegas or Salt Lake? Drink wine in Sonoma or Detroit? So as you can see, every community does have a reputation. Not every community knows what to do about it. So who's the keeper of the reputation for Vista, for North County? What's being said? Reputation matters. This information we got from the IEDC, the International Economic Development Council. 71% of capital investment deals did not involve an initial contact with the place, with the community, with the region. So almost 3/4 of the time, getting on the short list has to do with your reputation. So it clearly matters. A site selector told us this, a member of the Site Selector Guild. Branding is the most important thing an economic development organization can do. It tells us that you know what you are trying to be. What do people trust these days? There we go. Where do they get their information? 58% of people will believe a recommendation from someone like them. Who do they believe the least? Marketers, corporations, cities, counties, the man. So traditional marketing channels, least credible source of information. 56% of those, 35 to 64, and 63, 25 to 34, are likely to share their opinions. So word of mouth, very important, and it's widely shared more than ever. If somebody is really pleased or really displeased, they're going to tell people about it. If they're neutral, they're not going to say anything. So what we're after here, or what we recommend, is not putting all your efforts toward reacting to those negative or displeased folks, but getting at encouraging positive folks to speak about the region. Branding is exactly that, giving your people a voice to weigh in, to promote the region. Branding can impact your reputation. We want to gain a true understanding of the region. We go about it in a rigorous fashion through a lot of research. We want to get at the narrative of the place, of the region, who it is and where it's going. And we want to identify a steady stream of innovative products, initiatives that articulate and bring that narrative to life. A client of ours, Columbus, Indiana, has done exactly that. A few years ago, they went through this process. They were recently named #1 location for economic development in the U.S. by Area Development Magazine. So that working on your brand can have great results. But unfortunately, branding has a branding problem. People think it's a logo and a line. So at North Star, you'll probably tire of hearing us say it. No one moves anywhere, visits anywhere, or takes business anywhere based on a logo and a line. You just don't do it. You make decisions based on your experience or your emotional connection with a place. That likely will motivate your decisions. Difference between marketing and branding. Marketing is how you communicate. Branding is who you are. That's what this process is about, is getting to that brand essence, uncovering the competitive advantage for the region. I'll share another quote. This is actually from a neurologist. The conversation had nothing to do with branding, but certainly appropriate. The essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action while reason leads to conclusion. We're after that emotion, and we want people to be actively promoting your region. Regionalism's tough. Sometimes it may be hard to gather everybody or get everybody on the same page, but it's a very important concept and effort for a group of communities, and so I commend Vista and the other communities here on the corridor for coming together. How it works. Conflict is replaced with collaboration. Our approach is a bit different than some others. It unites divided entities. You can see the list there, but it's important to bring together the organizations and the communities that may be used to working competitively and kind of against each other, but then bringing those interests together. So, simply, if you come together, a byproduct of that is working together, and I think we're seeing that here and hope to see more of that as the brand comes to life. We've worked with, I'm sorry, I'm not managing this very well. Here we go. We've worked with 150 different communities and regions across North America in the past 13 years that we've been in business. And this is our process. It's my idea of an hourglass. We start with research, and I'm sorry you can't see those circles probably, but it says community, consumer, and competition. We're going to learn as much as we can about North County from within the communities. Talking to as many people as we can, different focus groups. We're talking to business executives, C-level folks. We're also going to look from the outside in, get that outside perspective, because that matters. You know, what is being said outside the region. And then we're going to get the context of the brand in the marketplace. Look at the neighbors, look at the competition. We're going to uncover that competitive advantage, and that's at the neck of the hourglass you see there with the strategic brand platform. So we're going to get this down to a sentence. It's not a creative statement. It's not a sexy or glamorous statement. It's an internal guiding principle, finding out what that competitive advantage is for the region. And so this is not about telling any one community to how they have to communicate. It's how to identify and advance the region and each community along with that. So every community will maintain should maintain their individuality and their spirit and their identity. And this is about when and how to leverage the strengths of the region for everyone's benefit. So if the audiences may be different, but if everybody can get on the same page for that strategic proposition, that competitive advantage that is revealed through this research, then as you communicate about the region and your individual community, you'll be advancing that region and all helping each other out as you reach your audiences. And so the bottom half of this hourglass is what a lot of people consider branding. We talked about it not being a logo and a line. That can be an output for this. For the region, we also will identify a narrative. We're going to bring that one sentence competitive advantage. We're going to add inspirational language to it, some colorful language, more creative, that'll allow people here to get excited about their role and what the region has to offer. And that will celebrate each community, but also the region. But then we're also going to make recommendations, both creative and implementation, or what we call action or brand behavior ideas. How does that brand leap off the page? How does it come to life in each of the communities and across the region? That's how folks will connect with the brand. They'll be able to talk about it through that experience. I'm not going to go through each piece of research because you can see there's a lot of it. We've already started that. We will complete the research at some point in November, but you can see extensive pieces of research, qualitative and quantitative, as we look from within and then from the outside looking in. And so I think you'll find, each of the communities will find that this volume of research is going to be very telling, because we're going to gather all of these perceptions. You're going to have access to all of this information. It's certainly going to inform our efforts and your efforts for branding, but there'll be a benefit to that even as you evaluate that input for other reasons or other concerns or issues that come up, because it's important information from your constituents. That creative part, a lot of elements there too. We will identify a brand identity guide that can include many of these items here. And then again, we will look at communications, policy, health and wellness, arts, the private sector, all different sort of initiatives and parts of the communities where we can bring this brand to life. So this week, we've got 4 members of our team here. We are a group of almost a couple of dozen, but 4 of us here. We have my colleague, the VP of Economic Development and Research, is here this week, and also Site Selector is a member of our team. So he's studying the region and talking with C-level folks about the region and the advantages here, and going to be able to evaluate and identify the positioning of the region toward that particular audience, which is very valuable, as we saw from the quotes earlier in this presentation. So we're spending an intensive day in each community this week, and then we'll continue that research through the next 2 to 3 months. So we get a lot of questions, so I may answer some of your questions as I move through this, but based on our experience with projects, what is needed to make sure the results of engagement are followed? Passion and leadership. So we've seen a lot of evidence of that already through this process and meeting with the folks that we've met with thus far this week, and again commend the leaders here on embarking on this sort of project for the region. And so we will look to you and to many others for that same passion and leadership as we move forward with implementation with this brand that will be uncovered. What does it cost? What's it going to cost? Not a dime and all you've got. So we will identify, we'll encourage you to prioritize and look for things. There are things that you can do that can advance your brand and this brand that we will uncover, the competitive advantage for the area that don't cost anything. It may be how you answer a phone, any number of things. It may be press release language. There's a long list of them. Excuse me. There are some things that will cost a lot. You prioritize those. You gather those resources. They will be goals. You won't be able to do them probably right out of the gate when you have this brand to implement, but you certainly should have those as goals and work toward those. With the private sector being involved in a community or regional brand, those communities are the most effective, the fastest. So we will certainly encourage you to build those partnerships and relationships. Measurement of success, the ongoing innovation of involving the brand. So when you introduce this brand for the region, when you have partners coming to you with ideas on how to advance that and getting excited about it, you know it's taking root. So we'll be looking for that extension of the brand. And just a few examples. This is from some work we did with Downtown New Orleans, their project devoted on talent recruitment, particularly the creative class. And this came out of the creative process through their project. And they ended up getting a federal grant from the EDA. This part of it was several $100,000. I believe the full grant was almost $1 million toward their Open for Business efforts there in downtown New Orleans. And it's a one-way ticket campaign where they invited entrepreneurs, paid for their travel, called it a one-way ticket to come check out New Orleans. They host Entrepreneurs Week with the Idea Village there. And so they hosted 25, had a video application process online, benolabound.com, and so they started this in 2012 and then repeated that this year. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Inc. magazine last year named them the #1 spot for entrepreneurs. So they are building momentum for their downtown brand. Iowa's Creative Corridor, not unlike the region here, kind of centered on a stretch of road, but needing some identity toward their assets. It's between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids, home to Rockwell Collins, a lot of technology firms and agro-processing firms also there in Cedar Rapids, and then Iowa City, known for the Writers' Workshop and the research associated with the university there, but calling it Iowa's Creative Corridor. But I wanted to show this because it kind of shows how a regional brand can be applied to different communities. You see monument signage there. You can feature the name of the region as being a proud part of it, and different assets there in that region, but not asking Iowa City to change monument signage or things that they have done. So that's what we look for here, those opportunities. You know, just for this example, monument signage, you have some in Vista, expensive to replace. You likely will not want to do that if you have done that recently. And so we will look for opportunities how to perhaps apply the regional brand to assets like that. But then there will be ways where you want to talk from a regional standpoint. And so having an economic development portal for the area on the web so that those site selectors can gather information very quickly. They'll know, and the information or reputation for where to get information from a web portal like that will likely be a recommendation. It's been effective for the corridor there. So that is really quick, 7 minutes, or I'm sure I went over because I talked too much, but a lot of information about this in a short amount of time. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about North Star, about our process, or this week. So I'd be happy to answer any of those questions.
Okay, and then also I know that Kevin Ham has taken a leadership role because all the economic development people have been meeting from our 5 cities, and also our city managers. So they've all been kind of, doing that. So I don't know if you want to, Kevin can maybe bring it. That's kind of an overview, and maybe Kevin can be more specific. And I know they're going to talk to all the council members, right, from all the cities. So that would be. But Kevin might give a little.
Sure, I'll move over here. By the way, we have a missing monitor.
Oh, missing, isn't it, the monitor?
Well, what I wanted to say is that this effort is part of a North County-wide economic development strategy, and it's the very first step. The cities have been working together for 2 years to develop a strategy, and this is, as I said, that first component. We are looking at opportunities to work together. We realize that in the past we've worked in silos. And for us to bring businesses to town, some of the questions they have for us, some of the things that they need, really don't come from any one city anymore. And so we've talked about it in this way, specifically with the brand. Let's say GM is the brand, that might be North County. And each of us might be, we might be a Corvette, we might be a Chevy Volt. We're all part of that brand, but it allows us to communicate the message of what we are in North County. I also want to highlight at the end of this process, after the site selector as well as North Star work on this, we're going to have a list of 100 companies that specifically meet our profile that we can go after and recruit for this area outside of the boundaries that we typically recruit. So this will be that first effort to go out since early 2004 when the recession started and some of the issues that we had. Businesses started to slow, and energy crisis. This will be getting us back out there into the marketplace from a national perspective to bring those businesses here and help them grow.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? I don't see. Either I'm not looking in the right place or I don't see anybody push their button. Did you push it? Oh, there we go. Okay, John, Councilmember Aguilera.
I'm not sure if I missed this at the beginning, but how long is this process going to take?
Great question. The research process takes about 4.5 months, so we would expect to wrap up the research by the end of November. And so the way the process works, we'll present that research and that strategic recommendation, the neck of that hourglass, and then we would move, with approval of that, we would move in to the bottom half of that hourglass into the creative. It's a little hard to predict the exact time frame for that creative process. It could be 3 months, it could be 4 or 5 months, depending on the rate of approval or the back and forth that we need to go. Because, you know, the creative process gets a little subjective, and so we may need to make revisions and different things as we gather that input from a small group.
So I know there's more than just the slogan, but
Right.
you know, let's just represent the slogan.
Okay.
Or talk about the slogan. Let's say you come up with a slogan, a recommendation. Is it one recommendation? Is it 10? And then who decides, who votes on, is it the mayors or how, I mean, who decides that that's what we're going to go with, or?
Right. That also is a good question. Now, creative oftentimes is a part of the process where it can go a little off the rails because of that subjectivity. We find in our experience that you want to charge a small group of people, and by small, that's 3 to 4 people to evaluate those creative concepts. And so we will be working with the team from the communities in identifying that group, and we can make recommendations. So you don't want to get into a situation where dozens of people or 10 people are evaluating and voting on, because you then get caught in trying to satisfy a lot of subjective opinions. The most important part of it, again, it kind of goes back to don't make this about a logo and a line, because you'll be buying trouble. It's basically your front door of your brand, so it needs to be attractive, it needs to be effective, but you don't want to ignore the rest of the house as you're building that brand. The strategy will be the foundation for that. So that's why we want to get everybody on board with that strategy first, and then we will build on that foundation, build those creative elements. So we will identify that small group, and then we can go through that creative process, and then I would expect that we would bring that back and share that as an update. Now, the region will have full discretion to take our recommendations and implement those how the region will choose to do that. We have communities that will take our creative recommendations and reproduce them exactly. Some will monitor them or change them a little bit. Some, get more information and they go a little bit, sharper direction, and that's the full discretion. But we will make, based on our experience with those 150 communities, and then all of the research that's specific to North County, make the best recommendation that we can, and then you can take that and move forward.
So I'm guessing probably the mayors will I'm guessing be the group, because our mayors have a lot to say about this, the 4 mayors. And then,
Well,
we need to have you involved and have all of your opinions and your feedback too, so.
Okay. Well, as I said, we'll work with Kevin and the team, so it may be that, because it's done many different ways, because every community, every region is different. So you may want to charge a small group of people that everybody can be passionate about it and have an opinion about it, but to do the work that's involved, you may want to charge a small group with that, and then come to the group of mayors or whoever may need to look at that as an update. We found that a lot of communities have success that way, so they have a team that's doing some work on their behalf that have some skills and experience to exactly that charge, and so we found that helpful.
So maybe, Mayor, what we could do is get together with Mr. Ham and discuss it, and maybe he would be the best,
You might
right?
be the best, yeah.
I mean, or you,
No,
but he would have an idea of all the businesses that we have in our business park and throughout our city. So
Of course, of course, of course. He'll be very, very involved.
we'll
So,
figure it out.
yeah,
Thank you.
We will. Okay, so any other, oh, wait, I didn't look down here. Deputy Mayor Coles. Are you on? Are you on?
The cities involved in this are who?
It would be Carlsbad, Oceanside Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido.
Well, there are 5 cities.
And
Okay.
it's actually they have 78 corridor is the
Right, yeah.
focus of the whole, of the
Yeah,
study.
you had mentioned 4 mayors, and I didn't know if that.
I didn't count myself.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
5 mayors, but it was,
All right. Thank you.
sorry. Any other questions or comments from any of you down there? Okay.
Thank you so much.
And good luck this week. I know they're meeting every day. They have meetings I think it's every afternoon, don't you? Every morning they're touring the cities, and every afternoon they're having meetings with
That's right.
different people in the community, in the different communities.
We're having a great visit, having lots of great conversation, learning great things. So thank you so much.
Good. We can't wait to hear what you're learning. So thank you. Okay. The next thing on our agenda, we're going to have a presentation by Kirby Brady. She's a research analyst for Sandag, and she's going to present the Series 13 Regional Growth Forecast, which is very interesting. So welcome, Kirby.
Thank you. Just this. Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor Ritter. My name is Kirby Brady. I am a research analyst at the San Diego Association of Governments. I'm also the project manager for the Regional Growth Forecast, which I'm here to speak to you about tonight. The Regional Growth Forecast, as many of you may be familiar with, is our long-range projections for population, jobs, and housing out to the year 2050. It's done on a 4-year cycle with our transportation plan, and really serves as the foundation for our transportation plan for future investments, future projects. So we'll go ahead and walk you through it. This is actually, some of the information here is from the sub-regional growth forecast, which is actually the neighborhood level forecast, or the city level forecast. And so we'll go ahead and give you the information about the region-wide forecast, and then we'll move into some specifics about Vista. So we'll go ahead and get started. So these are some of the major themes in this forecast, and some of the things you may have been hearing for a while with regards to our growth forecast. But some of the major highlights include an aging and diversifying population. This keeps losing me, but
Kind of comes and goes, doesn't
yeah.
it?
So again, so we'll talk a little bit about the age structure in the region, how that's changing. So the demographics in terms of race and ethnic distribution as well. Also, we're growing more sustainably, so we'll talk a little bit about the connection between housing and transit, as well as jobs and transit. And then lastly, we'll focus a little bit about the preservation efforts in the region. So since our last forecast, many of the cities in the region have undergone significant general plan updates, leading to more lands dedicated for preservation. So we'll talk about that as well. So just to give you kind of an idea, I know we're talking about 40 years in time frame out from now to 2050, so 2010 to 2050. And 40 years is really a lot of time, and so just to kind of put this in context and give you an idea of some of the things that have happened in this city in the last 40 years, just kind of help remind people that 40 years is an incredibly long period of time and a lot can happen. So in Vista, in the past 40 years, there's been some pretty significant developments. So in the last 40 years, the business park opened. Moonlight Amphitheater opened in 1975 and was renovated in 2009. The Vista Village was redeveloped. And then, of course, one of the big investments and projects in terms of transit was that the Sprinter came online. And then to give you an idea about our region-wide projections for the San Diego County region, here we have population, jobs, and housing, and our projections out to 2050. So between 2010 and 2050, we're expecting about 973,000 more people into this region, about 489,000 additional jobs, and about 333,000 additional housing units. And the thing I like to point out here is that the growth that's happening in San Diego County is really a result of those of us that are already here, or homegrown growth. So it's a result of people in this region aging in place and just staying in the region, as well as those of us that are already here having children, and those children continuing to stay in the region. So about 2/3 of the growth in this forecast is coming from just homegrown. So natural increase and an aging population here. About 1/3 of that is attributed to migration, both international and domestic. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then to give you an idea of some of the population trends in the region here, what you're looking at on top is an age pyramid, and it's breaking down the population by 5-year age groups. So the way you can read this is on the left-hand side, you've got males. On the right-hand side, you've got females. Starting at the bottom, we've got the youngest, so under 5, and we move all the way up to the top to the 85-plus category. And so really the takeaway here, the light blue portions of the bar represent those population groups in the year 2010, and the extended portion, the extended blue portion there represents where we expect those groups to be by the year 2050. So you can see kind of how the age structure of the region is changing. And so some of the notable things here you might have noticed already on this slide, the 20 to 24-year-old males, you can see that's a big bulge there, and that's representative of our military population. So that's kind of one segment of our population that never really changes. They don't age per se. They kind of filter in and out of the region, so we hold them constant. And then moving up to the top, what's really interesting here is that a lot of the growth you're seeing, so that extended blue portion, you'll notice that that's happening in some of those oldest age groups. So in this forecast, over 50% of the growth between now and 2050 is happening just in ages 65 plus. A full 10% is happening in just the 85 plus category there at the top. So if you look at that very top bar, 85 plus, that huge bump, that is representative of all the baby boomers, the youngest of the baby boomers, out to the year 2050. And then if you look down at the bottom there, we've got the race and ethnic breakdown for the region both in 2010, as revealed by the census, and then our projections out to 2050. So you can see that in 2010, the region as a whole was about 48% white, about 32% Hispanic, about 11% Asian, and then the remaining groups there making up less than 10%. By 2050, you see a big shift there now where it kind of switches between white and Hispanic. So by 2050, we project that the region will be about 30% white and about 46% Hispanic, and significant growth in the Asian population to about 16%. So pretty big demographic shifts in the pipeline for the region. And then to give you an idea of how we work through our forecast process at Sandag, again, we start with the region-wide forecast, which is total population, jobs, and housing for the entire region out to 2050. We take advantage of such information like historical data, current demographics of the region, a national forecast, and then we take all of our assumptions to an expert review panel with demographers and economists and industry experts for the region to have them vet our assumptions and make sure everything looks okay. Once we've completed the region-wide forecast, that's when we do the sub-regional forecast, which is what we're talking about today. So again, our neighborhood level forecast where we take total population, jobs, and housing, and we push that down to the city level. Once that's done, we move on to the detailed demographic forecast where we break down the population by age, sex, and ethnicity. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all this information gets fed into our transportation model and becomes the basis for the next transportation plan. And in terms of the sub-regional forecast, the big driver of these forecasts is really the land use inputs that we collect from each of the jurisdictions. So general plans are the basis for any forecast that we do. We collect information on zoning, housing capacity, existing land use, planned land use, et cetera. And so just to give you an idea of some of the cities that have undergone plan updates since our last forecast, I've listed them here. Chula Vista, specific plan updates, Escondido, which was an important one because it was a vote of the people, Imperial Beach, National City, San Diego, San Marcos with specific plans for their creek and university plans, Vista, of course, and then the county. And then in terms of some of the other information that we collect that's very important for the forecast, we refer to this as site-specific projects. These are housing projects or developments that are entitled, permitted under development, or what we refer to as pipelines. So if the city indicates to us that there are some potential projects moving forward in the near-term future, we want to make sure that we have those reflected in the first few years of our forecast. And then the last piece I want to touch on here with regards to the land use inputs is housing capacity itself. So again, we're projecting over 333,000 new units in the region. This is the first time in a long time for our forecast that we've had enough capacity on the books from all of the jurisdictions to accommodate the growth that we're projecting. And really what that comes down to is the updates that the cities have done. A big one was National City, for example, where they actually increased capacity in their city by about 10,000 units. So a lot of work has been done with regards to the general plans in the region, and it's contributed to this forecast that we're bringing to you today. And just to give you an idea of how we collect these land use inputs, again, we're collecting a wealth of information from every single jurisdiction. And in the past, we had a pretty painful process of actually printing paper maps and sending those out to all of the jurisdictions. So we've actually moved into the 21st century here and started an online system where we host all of the jurisdictions' information, including existing plans, so the general plan, plan land use, constraints, that sort of thing, zoning, and essentially the cities were able to log in, review their information down to the parcel level, so really a fine level of detail there, and then provide us feedback in terms of things that needed to be changed or updated. So just to give you an example of what it looked like here, on the right-hand side, there's a small map in the corner with a bunch of green dots. So to us, those green dots indicate that there was a comment there. So the city would log in, they would say, hey, this doesn't look right, you need to change something, please update this, drop a comment point on that particular parcel. We could go in and make the change, and it would reflect here on the map. So this was really a great process because it allowed us to keep inventory of all the changes that we made region-wide, and it also allowed us to provide feedback to the cities at the staff level to let them know how their changes were incorporated. So through this process, out of about 1 million parcels in the region, we actually reviewed over 350,000. We made updates to about 65,000, and we also updated the constraints layer. So constraints to development include steep slopes, floodplains, that sort of thing. And so again, I mentioned a little bit about open space in the region here, and so to give you an idea of kind of how open space has changed over time, may be a little bit hard for some of you to see in the back, but there are 3 different shades of green here on this map, and so the lightest shade here represents planned open space from our Series 9 forecast out to the year 2020. So Series 9 was done in the year 1999, and you can see what we were projecting the region to have by the year 2020. Now the middle shade of green, or the in-between shade of green there, represents the actual conserved lands as of the year 2013, so present. So you can see that we've already done significantly more in the way of preservation region-wide than what we were projecting back in 1999. And then the darkest green there represents the future or proposed conserved lands in the region in between now and the horizon year of our forecast. And so between now and 2050, we anticipate that open space in the region will increase by about 30%. Now to take a look at housing units, here on the screen we've got a map with blue dots here. 1 dot here is equal to 100 housing units. This is the housing distribution in the year 2010, so current housing distribution. And before we go back to the maps, we'll show you actually what this means in terms of where that growth is happening by each jurisdiction. So on this slide, we've got a stacked bar for each jurisdiction. The gray portion represents housing units in 2010, and then each of those incremental blue portions represent the different time periods of growth in our forecast. And so you can see on the right-hand side with the pie chart that in terms of new housing growth between now and the year 2050, the city of San Diego is actually absorbing about 53% of the growth in the region. So no surprise, the city of San Diego is the largest in the region and will continue to remain so. The unincorporated, by comparison, is receiving about 17% of the new housing growth in this forecast. And then as a point of comparison, in our Series 9 forecast back in 1999, we were projecting the unincorporated area to take about 21% of the new growth. So back to this notion of the updated general plans and how that plays into housing in the region. With these updated plans, again, with the additional capacity in the urbanized area, more of those cities can take on that growth. The unincorporated is receiving less of that growth as a result, and they've also done a lot to update their plans and focus the growth that's happening there in their rural villages. So now to give you an idea of what our increments in terms of housing growth, what we're projecting here now on this map. Again, the lighter blue dots represent housing in 2010, and the darker blue now represents growth between 2010 and 2020. And so you can see that I wanted to point out an interesting thing here for this forecast is that about 75% of the growth we're projecting between now and 2020 is coming just in the form of site-specific projects. So those are, again, the projects that cities have indicated to us are in the pipeline. So much of the growth here is really accounted for by these site-specific projects. So some of the notable ones would include A lot of the activity that's happening down in the South Bay there in eastern Chula Vista, those are site-specific projects. In North County, a lot happening in Escondido as well as San Marcos with their creek and university-specific plans. And then you can see kind of in the center area of the region within the city of San Diego, a lot happening downtown as well. And now between 2010 and 2035, so these darker blue dots now represent the cumulative growth between 10 and 35. You can see kind of where some more development is coming online. So now in the city of San Diego, you're seeing more happening through that kind of mid-city corridor along the University, El Cajon Boulevard areas. Again, down south, more intensification in eastern Chula Vista, and as well as down by the border, San Ysidro. North County, you start to see kind of all the development come online around the Sprinter corridor, so Vista, San Marcos, Escondido. And then by 2050, again, you can see where most of that growth is happening. So now we're seeing more of this growth happening kind of along the 8 corridors. So now you're seeing El Cajon, Lakeside, those areas intensify. You can also see Alpine. And so my point here is by 2050, now some of that growth is moving out to the unincorporated area. However, it's happening in these rural villages. And so on this map here, I recognize brown is probably not the best color for this map, but it works. So what you see here is the brown spots on this map represent areas that we were projecting growth to occur back in Series 9 there. So the takeaway is that, again, a lot of the growth that's happening now in the unincorporated areas is being concentrated in those rural villages. And then in terms of housing growth and its connection to transit, about 87% of the new growth in this forecast will occur within a half mile to a transit facility. So on this map, the green areas represent the half-mile buffer around transit routes and the transit facilities. And this network is the revenue-constrained network from our current transportation plan. And so this would represent the full build-out of that network in the year 2050. And then in terms of the growth in the region as a whole, about 82% of that is coming in the form of multifamily units and about 18% in the form of single-family units. And so I think that's striking for a lot of people because it seems, just a few years ago, there's no question that we were building much more single-family units in the region. But this is really, again, a reflection of what's happening in the general plan. So as single-family capacity is used up and we run out of that type of land, basically, what we're left with is multifamily lands, and that's what really is prevalent in a lot of the general plans for most of the jurisdictions. And then in terms of the job trends for this forecast here, similar to the chart you saw for housing, we've got one bar for each jurisdiction. Again, you can see in terms of jobs, the city of San Diego absorbs about 50% of the new jobs in this forecast, about 10% going to the unincorporated. However, when we talk about jobs in the unincorporated areas, we're not talking about things out on the rural fringes. We're talking about places like Lakeside and up in North County, Fallbrook, that sort of thing. So places that are close to the urbanized areas. And then to take a look at job growth, this is actually 2012 jobs in light pink, and then the dark purple represent the entire forecast, so 2012 to 2050. And so in terms of jobs and where they're located in this forecast, there's nothing really new in terms of where we're projecting the jobs. Really what you're seeing is an intensification of existing employment centers. So of course the major employment centers being downtown, of course the Golden Triangle, up north starting in Carlsbad, kind of along that Palomar Airport Road corridor and the Sprinter corridor as well. And then in terms of job growth and its proximity to transit, about 79% of the growth in this forecast will occur within a half mile to transit. And just as a point, here we've listed some of the major industries or the largest industries in the region today, as well as 2050. So the 4 big industries in our region today include professional and business services, government, leisure and hospitality or tourism, and then education and health. And so the 4 of those will remain the largest industries in the region, and all of those will increase their share of jobs in the region with the exception of government. So while government will actually add some jobs between now and 2050, its share of jobs in the region will decline. And then in terms of some of the results for the city of Vista here, now in terms of new housing growth, we're looking at a little bit over 9,300 new housing units, about 92% multifamily, about 8% single family. And then in terms of your race and ethnic distribution down below, 2012 is on the top. In 2012, Vista was about 42% white, about 48% Hispanic, about 4% Asian. By 2050, we're projecting the city to be about 21% white and about 67% Hispanic. And then just to kind of remind you of where we're headed as a region, again, by the year 2050, we're expecting a little bit under 1 million more people, so we'll be at about 4.07 million people in the region, with about 1.9 million jobs, or an increase of 489,000 additional jobs, and then an increase of 333,000 housing units, bringing us to a total of about 1.5 million housing units. With that, I'd like to open it up for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions down here? None? Interesting, though, huh?
Very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up and doing that. That was a very interesting.
Thank you.
It's very interesting to see where we're headed in the future. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With our presentations out of the way, the next thing we'll do is our consent calendar, and the recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to their clerk or the secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. So with that, we'll move to consent, and I will, does anybody have anything that they want to remove from the consent calendar?
I do not.
Anybody here? I have nothing.
I'll move that we accept the consent calendar.
And I'll second.
Okay. Have something you want to say?
Motion and a second.
Just going to
That's from before.
motion.
Oh, that's
Councilmember
that's
Rick,
for the motion.
made motion.
Okay,
Cole
we're
second.
still having a little trouble reading this new thing here. Okay, please cast your votes. Okay, that passes unanimously. Then,
Congratulations.
is there any? Was that it? Oh wait, I have some speakers. Like, geez. Okay, I have actually 3 speakers. I have Renee Glotzbaugh.
City council members and city attorney, city clerk, and staff.
I'm going to pull the microphone down so we can hear you.
Okay,
Pull it down
thank you.
yeah, there you go. Put it right.
Okay. This is about doing what is right in Vista for the youth and families. Every man, woman, and child has a constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit to happiness and good health. Please, you need to work as team players, you as the leader, with the Vista Chamber of Commerce and VVBA, and stop the selling of alcoholic beverages at family-friendly events, street festivals in Vista, the St. Pat's Festival, the Strawberry Festival, the barbecue, and the Rod Run, as you are destroying family values. Leave no stone unturned to give Vista's youth their much-deserved quality of life, healthy living 24/7, as alcohol contributes to cancer, many parts of the body, illness, and death. And that is very bad. The beverage is bad to sell for the youth to see as a fun drink. Don't you agree, Mayor and City Council members and City Attorney and City Clerk? This has been going on for many, many years, and it's time that you need to look at what is Vista. You have beautiful youth, beautiful students, and they're so talented. And then they come in their downtown to have a good time with their mom and dad, and they see this advertisement truck there in the gazebo. And I've seen minors with their families at the Rod Run. And what are we telling the young children? That it's, hey, you know, it's okay if we take a sip here and there for the adults. This is the time for family, time to be with the children, and not to be with the alcohol, as you have many alcohol establishments, please, in Vista. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glotzbaugh. Alejandro Sanchez.
City Council members, Alejandro Sanchez. Last meeting I attended, I really enjoyed it. I think that I will invite in the next City Council meetings at least 4 or 5 families. I will bring some videos for you to enjoy. I still believe that our police department has to be say bye-bye, adios. We have to have our own police department. The sheriff department is failing miserably in our community. People are so afraid of it. The vast majority, I can tell you, Hispanics. You know, they just profiling, discriminating, and our police department is to serve and to protect its citizens, not to fear them. You know, how dare they? You know, every time they go to our neighborhood and town side and they just praying on them and just watching all over. And if they see them, they just jump over them, you know. And in my opinion, I think we need a very good police in our city that understand our culture, especially to have the ability to discern between good and evil, criminals and no criminals, of course. And hopefully that you can consider or reconsider. I think this is not the first time that somebody asking you to do so. At least we've been through this for the last 20 years, as I recall. And hopefully that you consider, you know, to see the possibility, perhaps, to have a new police department, the Vista Police Department, our own police department. Thank you. And by the way, I have somebody who's going to come, and I'm going to translate for her in a very, very hard situation that it happens. I was there at that time, and I tell you, the videos that I want to present you in the next City Council meetings, they were be very interested to rethink, a lot of times to rethink that it's a good time to do that. Thank you.
The next speaker, Elvira Gutierrez. Put the microphone right by your mouth, okay, so we can hear you. Yeah, there you go.
Hola, mi nombre es Elvira Gutiérrez. A partir de julio 19 del 2013, mi vida cambió.
It's okay.
That's
It's
okay.
okay.
I'm going to do that for her.
It's okay.
Since July 19, 2013, my life changed forever. And that day, the sheriff department, police, or whatever you want to call them, pushed me over my sofa very, very hard. And they point me with a pistol. My husband begging them not to hurt me because I was pregnant and I did not speak no English. I was under medications for depression and for sleep. Nevertheless, they didn't care about anything. They treat me so bad. At the same time, my husband was supplicating, take me, but don't take her because she is pregnant, don't you see? That night, they took me to jail. I was with big cold and hungry. I started having headaches and thinking, just because I didn't speak English and for the lack of communication, I was almost ready to lose my baby. Without doubt, I'm not the same. I remember those moments that I spent in jail, and I was wondering myself, what did I do? I've been working for over 15 years in this country. I have no record. I always respect the law. I always provide for my parents. I support them. My parents, they're legal residents, honorable couple, respectable, that I love God and our family. And they here to see me in this state of depression. Sometimes at night, I wake up crying and thinking of all what I suffer. And I ask God that other families do not go through the same thing. And now, I ask you, in the name of my family and my baby, for a new police to know how to distinguish between a criminal and a pregnant woman, not a criminal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Mr. Sanchez? I know you want to help these people and the people you brought last week. I just don't understand why you... Do you know that there's a board that you can take complaints to? It's a citizens review board, and
I've done it a lot. Believe me, I have a lot of complaints to the citizens.
well, I would encourage you to take that route because you want to document this if these are truly some sort of violation.
And I'm glad that you mentioned this, but a big loss is going to come. Unfortunately, there is no other way that we can make understand the sheriff department that it's a time for change, you know. You're not dealing with animals. You're dealing with human beings, you know, and believe me, I've seen children, little children, when they having their own mothers and wives getting handcuffs.
Go ahead
and taking
take it
pictures
to
and
the
everything.
proper.
Take it
I
to
mean,
the
that's
proper
bad.
board.
That
That's
would
very
be
bad.
the proper channels.
Refer
Thank
to
you.
them. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to announcements here, and I have a couple. The Vista Fire Department Explorers Program is accepting applications through September 17th. The program offers young adults ages 15 to 20 years real-life experiences, training, and exposure to career opportunities in the fire services. The applications are online at thecityofvista.com, and actually I have a grandson who is in that program, and it's a great program. So if there's any teenagers that would like to follow through and be possible, in the fire job when they get older, that would be a good place for them to start. City offices in the Vista Library will be closed on Monday, September 2nd for Labor Day holiday, and the resident trash recycling service will be delayed one day for the rest of the week. So if you're supposed to have a Monday pickup, it'll be a Tuesday. Will everything be delayed? Yeah, everything will be delayed one day. Okay. What else? The Moonlight Young Frankenstein received great reviews, and I saw that, and I think it was great, but it's a PG-13 for people. PG-13, yeah. And it's playing through September 7th. What? PG-17. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking it might be PG-17. Next up at the Moonlight is the Who's Tommy, which will run from September 18th through October 5th, and tickets are available for both at the moonlightstage.com, so we can go and check that out. And so I will do comments, and I'll start with Amanda, Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything today except to say thank you once again to city staff for doing a great job.
Deputy Mayor Coles.
Not much to add. I was very impressed with looking at the outlook for our region, and it certainly does help us as we decide things that we need to prepare for here in Vista and the region. So I appreciate the reports we received tonight.
Councilmember Campbell. Councilmember Aguilera.
Just one quick announcement. I believe it's September 8th at Faith Lutheran Church. It's going to be the Patriot Day ceremony. Deputy Mayor Coles will be giving the... Deputy Mayor. Okay. So I invite everybody to be out there. It's a barbecue, starts at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and they'll be honoring the 19 fallen firemen from Arizona. So they've been doing this for the last 12 years, since 9/11, or 11 years, I guess, on the anniversary. So it's a moving ceremony. If you're going to be available, I would encourage you to be out there. A lot of good food and drink and a lot of great entertainment out there.
So is on Sunday before Labor Day?
Sunday, yeah.
Or this Sunday?
The 8th, September 8th.
It's the day before Labor Day.
After Labor Day.
No, Labor Day is on Monday.
Oh, the Sunday after.
Oh, the Sunday after Labor Day.
Yeah,
Okay.
the weekend after.
Got it. Okay. September 8th on your calendar. Got
After
it.
church.
Okay. And I've been in years past, and it's a great event. I unfortunately have something else on that day, but it's a great event, so don't miss it. our Assistant City Manager, Ali Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one update. The fall issue of the Vista News and Rec Guide, which we've rebranded as Our Vista, a community magazine, has been mailed to all Vista addresses. It's also available online, and we have hard copies at a number of our facilities. And registration is open for our fall activities, including flag football, girls volleyball, and a number of other activities for kids. Register online, vistarecreation.com.
Our City Attorney, Daryl Piper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to wish everyone a very pleasant Labor Day holiday.
How about our City Clerk, Marcy Killian? Nothing today? Okay, and then the only other thing is if you see tomorrow, and this is not for the TV thing, but the boot drive is tomorrow. The Firefighters Association will be doing their boot drive, so they'll be, let's see, where the Vista Village in South Santa Fe, they'll be out there with the boots, raising money for Muscular Dystrophy Association drive to support Jerry's kids. So look for them tomorrow. Actually, 2 intersections in town. It says between 6:30 and 10:30 a.m. at Vista Village in South Santa Fe, and then Vista Way in Melrose. So for that, if there's nothing else for the order, we're adjourned at, what time is it? 6:20? 6:37. Got that small font again on there.